Captain Jin-Ho Park stood motionless before the massive viewscreen aboard the ESS Pathfinder, watching as the crystalline alien vessel approached Mars orbit. His weathered hands gripped the command chair's armrests while his heart pounded against his ribs. After 20 years in Earth's Space Force, he thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. The alien ship glittered like a diamond caught in sunlight, its geometric patterns defying human engineering principles. 3 months ago, a routine Mars mining operation had uncovered the ruins, perfectly preserved alien structures buried deep beneath the red soil. Now, here they were, face to face with living proof that humanity wasn't alone. Commander Yuna Lee approached his chair, her boots making soft sounds against the deck plating. "Sir, they're hailing us again," she said quietly. "Same frequency as before." Park nodded, his throat dry. "Put them through." The screen flickered, revealing the alien being they'd come to know as Ambassador Rallin. Its silver-skinned face held features that were almost human-like, yet distinctly foreign. Eyes too large, neck too long, fingers that moved like flowing water. "Captain Park." Rallin's voice came through the translator with an artificial smoothness. "The Galactic Concordat welcomes humanity to the greater community of spacefaring species." The crew on the bridge exchanged glances. The Concordat, 17 different alien civilizations, all working together, all exploring the stars. Park had dreamed of this moment since he was a child staring up at the night sky from his parents' farm in Korea. "We're honored," Park replied carefully. "Though I admit, we're curious why you waited until now to contact us." Rallin's expression shifted in a way Park couldn't quite read. "We've been observing your species for some time. Your development has been concerning." Lee stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "Concerning. We've achieved faster than light travel, cleaned up most of our pollution, and largely ended poverty. What's concerning about that?" "It's not what you've achieved," Rallin explained, those two large eyes blinking slowly. "It's how you've achieved it. Your methods are reckless, dangerous. You've rushed headlong into space exploration with technology that's barely adequate for the task." Park felt his face grow warm. "With respect, Ambassador, our methods have worked well enough to get us here." "At what cost?" Rallin's voice held genuine worry. "We've watched your early space programs. You strapped yourselves to primitive chemical rockets with failure rates that would horrify any rational species. Your first moon landing. Your Mars colonies. You accepted casualty rates that would be considered mass suicide by Concordat standards." Lee couldn't help but laugh, though she quickly covered it with a cough. "That's just basic exploration. How else were we supposed to learn?" "Most species wait until their technology is perfected," Rallin replied. "The Zintheri spent 300 years developing their first space vessel. It was completely safe, tested in every possible way. The Merit ran 1,000,000 simulations before attempting their first orbital flight." "And how long did that take them?" Park asked. "The Merit took approximately 800 of your Earth years to reach space." Park exchanged a look with Lee. 800 years. "Ambassador, with all due respect, humanity couldn't wait that long. Our drive to explore, to push boundaries, it's fundamental to who we are." "Yes," Rallin said softly. "That's precisely what concerns us. Your species seems to lack basic self-preservation instincts. You climb mountains without proper equipment. You dive into deep oceans just to see what's there. You volunteer for dangerous missions with minimal chances of success." "We calculate the risks," Lee interjected. "We prepare as best we can. But if we waited for perfect conditions, we'd never leave Earth at all." Rallin's silver fingers moved in that fluid way again. "This is why we've chosen to intervene now. Your species is about to attempt quantum fold travel, without proper safeguards, without centuries of testing." "Because we're ready," Park said firmly. "We've done the math. We've run the simulations. Yes, there are risks, but that's true of any worthwhile endeavor." "Your species is unique among all we've encountered," Rallin said. You don't just accept risk. You embrace it. You seek it out. It's as if you're drawn to the very things that could destroy you. Park stood up from his chair, drawing himself to his full height. Perhaps that's exactly why we've accomplished so much in so little time. We're not reckless, Ambassador. We're determined. There's a difference. The alien's expression shifted again, and this time Park could have sworn he saw something like admiration in those strange eyes. Perhaps, Raylan said slowly, this is why the founders left their messages on Mars. They knew, someday, a species would come along that was brave enough, or foolish enough, to find them. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Park felt the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. What messages? He asked. That, Raylan replied, is something we should discuss in person. If you're willing to take the risk of coming aboard our vessel. Park smiled. Ambassador, compared to strapping ourselves to chemical rockets, I'd say that's hardly a risk at all. The crystalline ship glittered against the Martian sky, and Park knew that humanity had just taken its first step into a much larger universe. Whether the Concordat liked it or not, they were about to learn that humans would always go where others feared to tread. Dr. Hejun Kim studied the holographic display floating above his desk, watching the swirling patterns that marked the edges of what the Concordat called void zones. After 6 months of sharing data with alien scientists, these mysterious regions of space still defied explanation. Ships that entered them either disappeared completely or emerged with crews driven mad by what they'd experienced. The door to his lab slid open, and Dr. Minji Cho walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Hejun and peered at the display. Still trying to make sense of it, she asked, taking the sip from her own cup. Look at these energy readings. Hejun pointed to a series of numbers scrolling along the edge of the hologram. They don't match any known natural phenomenon. These void zones aren't random. They're artificial. Minji leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. You think someone made them. Why? That's what we need to find out. Hejun stood up and walked to the window overlooking the Seoul Space Center's main landing field. The Concordat's been avoiding these zones for thousands of years. They've never tried to understand them. They just mark them as dangerous and stay away. Can you blame them? After what happened to their research vessels? Hejun turned to face his colleague. Those ships weren't properly equipped. They went in blind, without understanding what they were dealing with. We can do better. Minji set down her coffee cup. The Concordat will never approve a research mission. They think we're crazy enough as it is. Then we don't ask for their approval. Hejun picked up his tablet and showed her the plans he'd been working on. I've already spoken with the Earth Space Agency. They're willing to back an expedition if we can prove it's feasible. Minji's eyes widened as she scrolled through the documents. You want to modify a survey ship with experimental quantum shielding. Hejun, that technology hasn't even been properly tested yet. It's been tested enough. The math works. The simulations work. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. The next day, Hejun presented his proposal to the Joint Earth Concordat Science Council. The alien representatives sat in shocked silence as he outlined his plan to enter the nearest void zone and gather direct data about its properties. This is madness, the Concordat's chief scientist, a tall being named Vel, finally said. Those zones have claimed countless lives. Even our most advanced ships cannot penetrate them safely. That's exactly why we need to explore them, Hejun responded, his eyes bright with determination. Something's causing these effects. We need to find out what. And our ships have something yours don't. And what would that be? Vel asked. Human crews. Hejun brought up a new display showing psychological profiles. Your species are perfectly adapted for normal space travel. You're cautious, methodical, patient. But these void zones require a different approach. They require people who can think quickly, adapt to changing conditions, and make split-second decisions. The Earth representatives nodded in agreement, but the aliens looked unconvinced. Hajum continued, "I've already assembled a volunteer crew. We've modified the ESS Explorer with experimental shielding designed specifically for void zone conditions." Experimental. Vel's color shifted to a pale green. "You would risk lives on untested technology." "All technology is untested until someone tests it," Hajum replied simply. "We've done everything possible to minimize the risks. But yes, there are still risks. That's the price of discovery." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the Earth representatives stood firm. The mission would proceed, with or without Concordat approval. 2 weeks later, Hajum stood on the bridge of the Explorer, watching his crew make final preparations. Minji had insisted on joining as his second-in-command, and their team included the best pilots and engineers Earth had to offer. "All systems are ready," Minji reported from her station. "Quantum shields are at full power. Course is set for the void zone boundary." Hajum looked at each crew member in turn. "This is your last chance to back out. What we're about to attempt has never been done successfully. We don't know what's waiting for us in there." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all just watched him with steady eyes, ready to face whatever came next. "Very well." Hajun sat down in the command chair. "Helm, take us in." Standard approach speed. The Explorer moved forward, its newly installed shields creating a subtle vibration throughout the hull. On the main screen, the void zone looked like a dark smear against the stars, as if someone had taken an eraser to reality itself. As they crossed the boundary, the ship's systems flickered. Strange readings flooded their instruments, but the quantum shields held, and the crew remained calm and focused. "We're receiving data," Minji reported excitedly. "The void. It's not empty at all. There's structure here, patterns in the chaos." Hajun felt a smile spread across his face. Where others saw only danger, humanity had found opportunity. Whatever secrets these void zones held, they wouldn't stay hidden much longer. "Start recording everything," he ordered. "Let's show the Concordat why humans go where others fear to tread." The Explorer pushed deeper into the unknown, its human crew doing what they did best, facing their fears and pushing boundaries in the name of discovery. Behind them, the normal space of the galaxy grew distant. Ahead lay mysteries that had waited millennia for someone brave enough, or crazy enough, to solve them. Dr. Myra Song ran her fingers over the strange metallic surface of the artifact they'd recovered from the void zone. Even after 3 weeks of study, it still hummed with energy they couldn't explain. The object was roughly spherical, covered in spiraling patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. "It's not just technology," she muttered, making notes on her tablet. "It's art." Across the lab, Hajun looked up from his own work. "Are you talking to the artifact again?" he asked with a small smile. "It's responding to something," Mayray insisted. "Watch." She placed her hand flat against the sphere's surface. The patterns began to pulse with a soft blue light, following the rhythm of her heartbeat. "Incredible." Hajun moved closer to observe. "It's never done that for any of the Concordat scientists." "Because they're afraid of it," Mayray said. "They treat it like a bomb that might go off. But look, it's designed to interact with living beings. The patterns, the energy signatures, even the way it responds to touch. This isn't a weapon. It's an interface." Their discovery of the artifact had caused a sensation throughout the Concordat. After successfully navigating the void zone, the Explorer had found what appeared to be an ancient station, floating in the darkness. Inside, they'd found hundreds of similar devices, each pulsing with the same mysterious energy that created the void zones themselves. Mireille picked up her tablet and pulled up the latest scan results. The energy patterns are identical to the void zone barriers. These devices don't just interact with the zones. They create them. "But why?" Hajum asked. "Why create barriers that drive away most ships that try to cross them?" "Because they're not barriers at all." Miray's eyes lit up with excitement. "They're tests." She quickly typed a series of commands into her tablet. The artifact's pulsing changed, synchronizing with her input. The void zones aren't meant to keep everyone out. They're meant to identify species with the right characteristics to handle advanced technology responsibly. And you think we passed their test? Think about it, Mayray said, setting down her tablet. The Concordat species are all naturally cautious. They see a dangerous region of space. They avoid it. But humans, we see a mystery and we have to solve it. We take calculated risks. We prepare as best we can and then we face our fears. The artifact suddenly projected a holographic display into the air between them. Complex equations and diagrams filled the space, rotating slowly. You see, Mayray pointed to the floating symbols. The ancients who built these devices wanted to make sure their technology wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. Not through weapons or threats, but through a test of character. 2 days later, Mayray stood before the full Concordat Council, presenting her findings. The alien representatives watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as she demonstrated how the artifact responded to different approaches. The void zones aren't random, she explained. They're sophisticated security systems. When a ship enters, the barriers analyze how the crew responds. Do they panic? Do they give up? Or do they work methodically to understand what they're dealing with? But the zones drive crews insane. One council member objected. We've lost many brave explorers to their effects. Only because they weren't prepared, Mayray countered. The zones create psychological pressure, yes, but they're designed to be overcome by species who can handle stress and uncertainty, species who can adapt. She held up the artifact, which glowed softly in her hands. This device contains technological principles far beyond anything we currently understand, but it won't share its secrets with just anyone. It has to be earned. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some members were horrified at the idea of testing such dangerous technology. Others were excited by the possibilities it represented. Through it all, Mayray stood calmly, letting them work through their fears. Finally, the head counselor spoke. Dr. Song, are you suggesting that humans are somehow special? That we alone are worthy of this ancient knowledge? Not at all, Mayray smiled. I'm suggesting that humans happen to evolve the right combination of traits to pass this particular test. We're curious enough to investigate mysteries, brave enough to face dangers, and cautious enough to do it responsibly. The ancients weren't looking for perfect beings. They were looking for balanced ones. She set the artifact on the council table, where it continued its gentle pulsing. The void zones aren't barriers to keep people out. They're filters to let the right ones in. And now that we understand how they work, we can help other species learn to navigate them safely. This is why the founders left their messages on Mars. Hajun added from his seat in the audience. They knew humanity would eventually find them. Not because we're better than anyone else, but because we're willing to take the risks necessary to grow and learn. Mayray nodded. The ancients left us a choice. Stay safe in known space, or venture into the unknown and find wonders beyond imagination. Humanity has always chosen the second path. Now we can help others choose it too. The artifact's light spread across the council table, its patterns moving faster now, as if responding to the growing excitement in the room. The age of playing it safe was ending. A new era of exploration and discovery was about to begin, and humanity would lead the way. Through understanding and accepting risk, through facing the unknown with both courage and caution, humans had unlocked a door that had remained sealed for millennia. What lay beyond that door would change the galaxy forever. Captain Ji-Woo Choi watched the quantum storm approach Proxima Colony through the main viewport of the ESS Defender. The swirling mass of energy had appeared seemingly out of nowhere 3 days ago, and now threatened the lives of 10,000 colonists. The storm's outer edges flickered with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space, casting eerie shadows across the bridge. Evacuation vessels are reporting only 30% capacity. First Officer Seo Jin Kwan reported, her voice tight with concern. At current rates, we won't get everyone out in time. Jiwu clenched his jaw. The Concordat's response to the crisis had been typical: order a full evacuation and abandon the colony to its fate. They had sent ships to help, but their methodical, cautious approach meant precious time was being wasted. "What's the status of that Void Zone artifact we recovered last month?" he asked suddenly. Seo Jin blinked in surprise. "It's still in the science lab, sir. Dr. Song's team was studying its shielding properties before the evacuation order came through. Get her up here now." Minutes later, Dr. Myra Song arrived on the bridge, looking confused. "Captain, we should be evacuating with the others." "Doctor, could the Void Zone technology be modified to create a defensive barrier around the colony?" Myra's eyes widened as she understood his meaning. "The principles are similar. The quantum storm operates on some of the same energy frequencies as the Void Zones, but adapting the technology would be incredibly dangerous. We have to modify the artifact's core programming while it's active." "Can it be done?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Theoretically. But Captain, this has never been attempted. The risks are less than the certainty of losing the colony and potentially thousands of lives." Jiwu finished. He turned to the communications officer. "Get me the Concordat representative." The alien's face appeared on the main screen moments later. Ambassador Vel looked even more distressed than usual, their silver skin almost white with anxiety. "Captain Choi, why haven't you begun your evacuation? The storm will reach the colony in less than 6 hours. Ambassador, we have a potential solution. We can use modified Void Zone technology to create a defensive barrier around the colony." The alien's expression shifted to one of horror. "You're suggesting using untested technology during a crisis. Technology we barely understand." "I'm suggesting we save 10,000 lives," Jiwu countered, his voice firm. "Sometimes the riskiest choice is doing nothing at all." "This is madness. The Concordat cannot approve such a dangerous." "We're not asking for approval." Jiwu cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Dr. Song, what do you need?" Myra was already working at a console. "The artifact's in the lab. We'll need to move it to the colony's main power facility and interface it with their systems. I'll need at least 3 hours to modify the programming." "You have 2, Jiwu said. "Seo Jin, coordinate with colony security to maintain order. Tell them help is coming." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. While Myra and her team worked frantically to modify the artifact, Jiwu dealt with increasingly angry messages from both the Concordat and Earth Command. He ignored them all. Finally, Myra's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we're ready, but you should know, there's only an estimated 60% chance this will work." "Better odds than 0, Jiwu replied. He turned to his bridge crew. "This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to evacuate should do so now." Not a single person moved. "Activate the barrier," he ordered. The artifact hummed to life, its energy connecting with the colony's power grid. A shimmering field began to form around the settlement, similar to the barriers they'd encountered in the Void Zones, but somehow different, more controlled, more focused. The quantum storm hit with devastating force. The barrier flickered, energy patterns clashing in a spectacular display. Inside the colony, people huddled in their homes, watching as human ingenuity and ancient technology fought against the raw power of space itself. "Barrier holding at 80%, Seo Jin reported. 75%, 70%. "Reroute emergency power," Jiwu ordered. "Everything we've got." The minutes stretched like hours as the storm raged around them. Then, slowly, the violent energy began to dissipate. The barrier held. When it was over, the colony stood undamaged. 10,000 lives had been saved by the very technology the Concordat had feared to use. Ambassador Vel's face appeared on the screen again, their expression unreadable. "Captain Choi, what you did was reckless, unauthorized, and completely against all established protocols." "Yes," Jiwu agreed simply. "It was also The alien seemed to struggle with the words, remarkably effective. Perhaps there is something to be said for your human approach to crisis management. Jaiwu smiled slightly. The universe doesn't always give us time to run simulations, Ambassador. Sometimes we have to trust our understanding and take calculated risks. As recovery teams began assessing the colony, Jiwoo looked out at the now calm space where the storm had been. Humanity had just proved once again that courage and innovation, combined with proper preparation, could overcome seemingly impossible odds. The Concordat would have to adapt to this new reality. The time for excessive caution was past. The galaxy needed humanity's willingness to face challenges head-on, to find solutions where others saw only disaster. The risk had been worth it. It always was. Engineer Sung Min Kang's hands moved swiftly over the alien artifact, sweat beading on his forehead as he rerouted power connections. The ESS Venture's engine room hummed with nervous energy as his team worked to integrate the ancient technology into the ship's systems. Power fluctuation on Deck 3, called out his assistant, Jae-yun Park. The artifact's drawing more energy than we predicted. Reroute auxiliary power, Sung Min ordered, not looking up from his work. We need every bit of juice we can get. His fingers traced the delicate patterns on the artifact's surface, feeling the way it pulsed in response to his touch. After studying the Void Zone technology for months, he was starting to understand its rhythms. Up on the bridge, pilot Du-Yun Ryo guided the Venture through the storm's outer edges. Her hands danced across the controls with practiced precision, compensating for each energy surge that threatened to throw them off course. "That's a hell of a light show," she muttered, watching the quantum distortions ripple across space. The storm's otherworldly colors reflected off her face, casting strange shadows in the bridge's dim lighting. Captain Ji-woo Choi stood behind her chair, gripping the headrest tightly. "How long until we're in position?" 10 minutes, if we don't get knocked off course." Du-Yun adjusted their trajectory slightly. "These energy waves are getting stronger. Whatever Sung Min's planning, he better do it fast." The ship shuddered as another wave hit them. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. In engineering, Sung Min felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet. "Final power coupling in place," he reported through the comm. "Beginning integration sequence." He placed his palm flat against the artifact's surface, feeling its energy sync with his heartbeat. This was the riskiest part, convincing ancient alien technology to work with human systems. The artifact's patterns began to shift, spreading across the makeshift interface they'd built. Symbols appeared in the air above it, rotating slowly as the device assessed its new configuration. "Is it working?" Ji-woo's voice came through the comm. "It's adapting," Sung Min replied, watching in fascination as the alien technology began to merge with their systems. The Void Zone artifacts weren't just designed to test us. They were meant to work with us. A sudden surge rocked the ship, throwing several crew members off their feet. Du-Yun's hands flew across her controls, fighting to maintain their course. "We've got company," she announced. 3 Concordat vessels on an intercept course. They're ordering us to stand down." Jaiwu straightened his back. "Ignore them. We've got 10,000 colonists counting on us." "Sung Min, we need that barrier now." The engineer took a deep breath, centering himself. The artifact's energy was flowing through their systems now, changing them in ways their sensors could barely track. He input the final sequence, praying his calculations were correct. Barrier deployment in 3, 2, 1. Energy burst from the Venture's modified systems, spreading outward in a massive wave. Where it met the quantum storm, the two forces clashed in a spectacular display of light and power. The barrier expanded, forming a protective dome over the colony below. "It's working," Jae-yun exclaimed, checking the readings. "The barrier's stable at 60% power and holding." Du-Yun's voice came through the comm, tight with concentration. "Storm's intensifying. We need more power to the barrier, or it won't hold." Sung Min looked at his readouts, mind racing. The artifact was already drawing maximum power, but maybe. He reached out and placed both hands on its surface, remembering how it responded to human touch. "Come on," he whispered. "We're trying to help. Work with us." As if in response, the artifact's patterns began moving faster. New energy signatures appeared on their sensors as the device tapped into power sources they didn't even understand. The barrier strengthened, pushing back against the storm's fury. On the bridge, Du Yun watched in amazement as the quantum distortions began to dissipate. The Concordat vessels hung back, their crews likely shocked by what they were witnessing. "Barrier holding at 90%, she reported. "Storms weakening. We did it." Jai Wu allowed himself a small smile. "No, some men did it. He proved these artifacts don't just test us. They choose us. They're tools meant for species willing to take risks and push boundaries." In engineering, some men finally stepped back from the artifact, exhausted but triumphant. The alien device had responded to their desperate need, working with their hybrid systems in ways that defied conventional physics. "Send the data to the Concordat vessels," Ji Wu ordered. "Show them exactly how we did it. They need to understand that this technology isn't meant to be feared. It's meant to be used." Hours later, as recovery teams began securing the colony, Ambassador Vel requested permission to come aboard. The alien leaders studied their modified systems with an expression that might have been awe. "You took incredible risks," Vel said finally, "but you also showed incredible insight. Perhaps we have been too cautious in our approach to the artifacts. The ancients who built them wanted their technology used by those who could handle it responsibly." Sung Min explained. "Not recklessly, but not fearfully either. They left us tools to help us grow, if we're brave enough to use them." As the Venture's crew began documenting their modifications, word of their success spread throughout human space. They had done more than save a colony. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its courage, but its ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. The quantum storm dissipated completely by the next day, leaving behind a changed understanding between humans and their alien allies. Sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from careful planning, but from necessity and determination. And in engineering, the artifact continued to pulse with energy, its patterns shifting in what almost looked like satisfaction. It had found worthy users at last. Ambassador Tahi Park stood before the Concordat Assembly Hall, its soaring crystal arches filled with representatives from 17 spacefaring species. 3 months after the Proxima colony incident, the mood among the alien races had shifted from horror to cautious curiosity about human methods. "Look at these statistics." Tahi gestured to the holographic display floating behind her. "Human space exploration has a 93% success rate, despite taking on missions other species considered impossible. We're not reckless. We're calculated risk-takers." In the front row, a young Xanthari scientist named Ren leaned forward, their crystalline form catching the light. "But how do you overcome the natural fear of the unknown? Our species has evolved to avoid unnecessary risks." "That's exactly the point," Tahi smiled. "We don't see these risks as unnecessary. Every step into the unknown expands our understanding. Yes, there are dangers, but we prepare for them." She pulled up new images showing human training facilities. "Before any dangerous mission, we run simulations. We practice emergency procedures. We develop backup plans for our backup plans. The difference is, once we've prepared, we move forward." The assembly hall buzzed with quiet discussion. On one of the upper tiers, Captain Ji Woo Choi sat watching with satisfaction. After Proxima, he'd been invited to share human emergency response protocols with the Concordat. "Let me show you something remarkable," Tahi continued. She displayed footage from the first joint human-alien expedition into a void zone. "Watch how the human crew members work with their alien colleagues. We don't just charge in. We teach, we learn, we adapt." The footage showed a human engineer teaching a merit scientist how to interact with void zone artifacts. The aliens' natural caution combined with human innovation had led to breakthrough discoveries. Our species complement each other, Tahi explained. Your careful analysis helps us avoid unnecessary risks. Our willingness to push boundaries helps you overcome excessive caution. A Concordat elder raised their appendage. But what a failure! The cost in lives is always calculated, Tahi interrupted gently. We never risk lives without purpose. When we lost the Mars colony in 2157, we didn't retreat from space. We learned, we adapted, we improved our methods. That's the human way. She brought up new data showing the results of recent joint missions. Success rates had actually improved when human and alien crews worked together, combining the best aspects of both approaches. The ancient artifacts we've discovered prove we're on the right path, she continued. They respond to species willing to take calculated risks. Not reckless ones, not fearful ones, balanced ones. In the audience, Dr. Myra Song nodded approvingly. Her research team now included scientists from 3 different alien species, all working together to understand the Void Zone technology. We're proposing a new framework, Tahi announced. Joint training programs where humans and aliens learn from each other. Risk assessment protocols that balance caution with progress. A true partnership. The assembly chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. For millennia, the Concordat had explored space at a careful pace, avoiding anything that seemed too dangerous. Now humanity was offering a middle path. We don't ask you to abandon your natural caution, Tahi said softly. We ask you to trust that sometimes, with proper preparation, facing the unknown is worth the risk. After her presentation, Tahi met with a group of alien scientists eager to learn more. Among them was Ren, the young Xanthari who had spoken earlier. Your methods are intriguing, Ren admitted. My people have always believed that anything worth doing was worth waiting for, but perhaps we've waited too long. It's never too late to learn new approaches, Tahi replied, just as we're learning from your experience and wisdom. Over the next few weeks, the first official joint training program began. Human instructors taught alien crews how to handle crisis situations, while alien scientists shared their deep knowledge of space phenomena. In the void zones, mixed crews made breakthrough after breakthrough. The ancient artifacts responded even more strongly to the combined approach, as if their creators had known this day would come. We're not just exploring space, Tahi told a reporter later. We're exploring new ways of thinking, new ways of working together. The universe is too vast and wonderful for any one species to face alone. The Concordat Assembly eventually voted to formally adopt human risk assessment protocols into their guidelines. It wasn't a complete transformation. Many species still preferred their cautious approach, but it was a start. As Tahi watched the vote results come in, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not by changing who they were, but by helping others see the value in their approach. The universe was full of mysteries waiting to be solved, dangers waiting to be faced, and wonders waiting to be discovered. And now, thanks to this new understanding between species, they would face it all together. Progress required facing the unknown. With proper preparation and mutual respect between species, that journey had finally begun. Admiral Jin Ho Park watched the stars through the vast view screen of the ESS Pioneer, remembering that first contact 5 years ago. Back then, the Concordat had seen humans as reckless, dangerous creatures. Now, the Pioneer's bridge crew included members of 6 different species, all working together in perfect harmony. Status report, he called out, his voice carrying the weight of experience. All systems nominal, responded Lieutenant Ren, the young Xanthari navigator whose crystalline form sparkled under the bridge lights. The void zone boundary is approximately 20 minutes ahead. Next to Ren, human pilot Min Ji-cho made minor course corrections with practiced ease. The cooperation between their species had produced breakthroughs in navigation that neither could have achieved alone. Engineering reports the artifacts are cinced and ready, called out Chief Engineer Song, her voice carrying from the lower deck. In the 5 years since Proxima, she had refined their understanding of the ancient technology beyond anyone's expectations. Park moved to the center of the bridge, where a holographic display showed their target, a massive region of uncharted space that the Concordat had marked as forbidden for millennia. But now, with human innovation and alien wisdom combined, they were ready to face its mysteries. "Admiral," a soft voice called. Park turned to see Ambassador Vell approaching. The alien diplomat had become one of humanity's strongest supporters after witnessing their successes. "The Concordat Council sends their best wishes for this mission." Park nodded, remembering how far they'd come. The Pioneer wasn't just a starship. It was a symbol of everything they'd achieved together. Its hull contained technology from all 17 Concordat species, enhanced by human ingenuity. "Void zone boundary in 10 minutes," Wren announced, sensors detecting unusual energy patterns. Just like old times, Minji smiled, her fingers dancing across her controls. The young pilot had trained alongside Wren, each learning from the other's strengths. Throughout the ship, mixed crews of humans and aliens prepared for the unknown. In engineering, teams that once feared the ancient artifacts now worked confidently with their power. In the science labs, researchers from a dozen worlds combined their knowledge in new ways. "Remember when they thought we were crazy for going into the void zones?" Park asked Vell quietly. The alien's silver skin rippled with amusement. "Remember when we thought you were primitives for using chemical rockets? We've all learned much since then." A slight vibration ran through the ship as they approached the boundary. Park watched his crew, noting how they worked together without hesitation or fear. Human determination balanced with alien wisdom, creating something greater than either alone. "All stations, final checks," he ordered. "We're about to make history again." The ancient artifacts hummed to life throughout the ship, their energy merging with the Pioneer systems. What had once seemed mysterious now felt natural, as if the technology had been waiting for this moment. "Boundary in 3 minutes," Wren reported. Energy patterns matching predicted models. Park thought about his first command, the ESS Pathfinder, and how far they'd come since those early days. The Pioneer was more than just a better ship. It represented a new way of thinking about space exploration. "We go where no one else dares," he said softly, "not because we're braver, but because we understand that the greatest discoveries lie beyond our comfort zones." The bridge crew nodded in agreement, both humans and aliens understanding the truth in his words. They had learned to balance courage with caution, innovation with wisdom. "Boundary in 1 minute," Wren announced. "All systems ready." Minji's hands hovered over her controls. Course plotted and locked. Park took his command chair, feeling the familiar excitement of discovery. "Take us in, steady as she goes." The Pioneer crossed the boundary smoothly, its hybrid systems handling the transition better than any previous vessel. On the view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and change. "Unknown energy signature detected," called out the science officer, a young merit whose species had once feared such anomalies. "Beginning analysis using combined protocols." This was what they had achieved, not just the ability to explore, but to face the unknown with both courage and wisdom. Human and alien minds working together, finding solutions neither could have imagined alone. "Send word to the Concordat," Park ordered. "The path is open. We're going to map this region properly, establish safety protocols, make it accessible to all species ready to take the journey." As the Pioneer pushed deeper into uncharted space, Park felt a deep sense of pride. They had taught the galaxy that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the determination to face it. And in return, they had learned the value of patience, of careful consideration, of ancient wisdom. The ship's engines hummed with power drawn from technology older than their civilizations, guided by the combined knowledge of 17 species and human innovation. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. "New contacts ahead," Wren reported excitedly. energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Full sensor sweep, Park ordered. Let's show the galaxy how this is done. The Pioneer continued forward, carrying the hopes and dreams of multiple species into the unknown. They had finally found their balance. Not too cautious, not too reckless, but ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. And as they ventured deeper into the mystery, Park knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast and full of wonders, waiting for those brave enough to seek them out, wise enough to study them properly, and determined enough to keep pushing forward. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just courage, but the understanding that progress required facing the unknown. Together, they would make discoveries their ancestors could only dream of. The journey continued, and the stars beckoned them onward.